We need to talk about the 4-hour work week lie.
Oh, yeah, the great broken promise of our time.
Right, because for the last couple of years, we have all been sold this very specific, very seductive vision of the future. You know, the one where you have this super intelligent AI agent just sitting on your desktop?
And it handles all the drudgery?
Exactly. The emails, the coding, the report generation, it all just evaporates. And you are left sitting in a hammock somewhere focusing on high-level strategy or, I don't know, just taking a really long lunch.
It was supposed to be the end of the grind.
Mm.
I mean, economists were predicting this kind of leisure time back in the 1930s, and the algorithms were finally going to deliver it.
But if you are listening to this right now, you have probably noticed a glitch in the matrix.
A pretty massive glitch.
Because for a lot of us, these tools are not leading to empty calendars. They are leading to a calendar that is fuller and faster and honestly way more exhausting than ever before.
Right, we aren't working less, we're just managing more.
And it turns out there is a name for this. It is a phenomenon researchers are calling workload creep.
Yeah, and to really understand why this is happening, and more importantly, how to stop it, we are doing a deep dive today into a fascinating piece of research.
It is by Dr. Jonathan Westover.
Right, titled The Paradox of AI Acceleration and Workload Creep.
And I just want to point out, this isn't just Westover riffing on a blog post. He is drawing heavily on a longitudinal study from UC Berkeley's Haas School of Business.
Yes, they followed 200 tech employees over 8 months.
200 people. And
Yeah.
these are the people at the cutting edge, right? The ones who should theoretically be living the dream.
Exactly. And instead, the researchers found that the dream was actually turning into a very specific kind of burnout.
So our mission today is not to just bash AI. We know the tech is incredible.
Is transformative.
It is. But we want to investigate why these tools that are explicitly designed to save time are actually devouring it. And we want to look at what organizations can do to help you actually reclaim that time.
So let's get into the mechanics of this workload creep.
Yeah, it sounds like something that happens to the foundation of an old house.
It does. But it is happening to our schedules. Westover defines it as a progressive expansion of work demands beyond sustainable levels.
But what really struck me when reading the source is that it is not linear at all. It is a cycle.
Right. It was a self-reinforcing feedback loop. The Berkeley researchers actually broke it down into 4 distinct steps.
And once you hear them, you will see them happening in your own office immediately.
Oh, absolutely.
Okay, lay it out for us. How does the trap snap shut?
So step 1 is the honeymoon phase. They call it acceleration. You use AI to complete a discrete task, say writing a marketing brief or shipping a new software feature, and you do it way faster than before.
Which is a genuinely great feeling. You know you finish a task at 2 in the afternoon that used to take you until 5. You feel like a productivity god.
You've just bought yourself 3 hours of freedom.
Theoretically, yes.
Right, but that leads directly into step 2, which is expectation ratcheting.
This is where it gets insidious.
It really is. This is where the external world catches up to your new speed. Your boss, your clients, even your teammates, they see that speed.
And they don't say, wow, enjoy your afternoon off.
No, they subconsciously recalibrate the baseline.
So if I turn in the quarterly report on Tuesday instead of my usual Friday for 1 week, I am an absolute hero.
But the next week, if you turn in on Friday, you are suddenly slow.
Right. I haven't bought freedom at all. I have just erased my own buffer. The exceptional speed just became the new standard.
Exactly, which forces step 3, increased reliance.
Because to meet those new hyperspeed expectations, I have to use AI for everything now.
You literally cannot afford to do things manually anymore because the new timeline won't allow it. You are locked in.
You've burned the bridge back to the old way of working.
Precisely. And that leads to the final and frankly the most dangerous step, scope expansion.
Because the individual tasks take less time, you don't just do the same amount of work faster.
No, you try to do more different types of work.
This is the juggling act I was reading about. Instead of writing 1 deep, thoughtful report, I am now writing 3 reports while managing 2 project boards and drafting a team newsletter simultaneously.
And here's where the study gets really psychological, because you might think this is all coming from some evil manager cracking a whip.
Right, pushing everyone to the brink.
But the Berkeley data shows that initially this cycle is largely voluntary.
Wait, we are doing this to ourselves?
To a large extent, yes.
Yeah.
The researchers found the workers were enthusiastic about it at first.
I guess there is a dopamine hit when you cross things off a list really fast.
Absolutely.
Hmm.
AI made doing more feel accessible. It felt possible to be superhuman.
It is that inbox zero addiction. It feels so good in the moment to clear the deck, even if you are just instantly refilling it with more junk.
And that is the trap. One employee of the Berkeley study actually summed it up perfectly. I have the quote here. They said, "You had thought that maybe you can work less, but then really you don't work less. You just work the same amount or even more."
That is devastatingly relatable.
It hits hard.
It does. But I have to play devil's advocate here for a second.
Go for it.
If I am a shareholder or a CEO, do I actually care? I mean, if the engineers are tired, but they're doing the work of 3 people, isn't that exactly what I am paying for? Why is this actually bad for business rather than just being tough on the employee?
That is the multi-million-dollar question right there. And the source material argues that if you look closely, the productivity you're seeing is actually an illusion.
An illusion.
Yeah, there are hidden costs that completely undermine the initial efficiency gains. And Westover uses a term for this that I absolutely love. Well, I hate the reality of it, but the word itself is perfect.
Oh, I know the one.
Work slop.
Work slop. It just sounds so visceral. It sounds like physical waste.
It basically is digital pollution. Work slop refers to low-quality AI output. It is the kind of stuff that looks okay on the surface. It is grammatically correct the code compiles, but it requires extensive correction behind the scenes.
So it is the difference between you sending me a thoughtful bulleted email and you sending me a generated block of text that takes me longer to read and verify than it would have taken to just call you.
Exactly. And the Berkeley research documented this happening constantly. They watched engineers who were spending more time fixing AI-generated code from their colleagues than it would have taken to just write that code from scratch themselves.
Wow, so the efficiency gains just dissolve.
They completely vanish because now you have this massive downstream validation overhead.
You are not building anymore. You are just janitoring.
You are. You create a bottleneck where everyone in the office is just cleaning up everyone else's slop. And this leads to a massive cognitive cost for the individual worker.
The source dives into the neuroscience here, doesn't it?
Yes, specifically regarding something called attention fragmentation.
Now, we have all heard of multitasking. Is this different?
It is multitasking on steroids. So think of your executive function. That is your brain's ability to focus and make decisions. Think of it like a phone battery.
Okay, I'm with you.
In the old days, doing a deep manual task might drain that battery steadily over an 8-hour day. But when you are running multiple AI agents, generating text over here, checking code over there, prompting yet another tool, you are constantly context switching.
So it is not a slow drain.
No.
Yeah.
It's like your phone searching for a signal in a dead zone. It drains the battery in 2 hours.
You are not just working hard. You are constantly forcing your brain to recalibrate to a new task every 3 minutes.
Correct. The source explicitly mentions that this depletes executive function much faster than traditional manual work. You might feel like you are being hyper-efficient, but your brain is actually overheating.
And when your battery is in the red, you lose the ability to do the real work.
Right. You lose the capacity for deep, innovative thinking. The study calls this the innovation deficit.
Because if I am just managing bots and fixing typos all day, I am not actually wrestling with the core problem.
Yeah.
And if I don't wrestle with the problem, I don't ever truly understand it.
Exactly. When you outsource the doing, you eventually lose the deep understanding.
I want to pivot to something else that really stood out to me in the text, because I think every single person listening has done this.
The erosion of boundaries.
Yes, the erosion of boundaries. The source mentions AI infiltrating our downtime, specifically lunch breaks and those quiet 5 minutes before you leave the office.
This was a very specific finding in the research. They observed employees actively prompting AI tools during their recovery time.
And I totally get why, because it feels like it takes no time, right? It is just typing a prompt and hitting enter. It feels completely frictionless.
That's exactly what they call it, the frictionless problem. Because sending a prompt takes 5 seconds, it doesn't code in your brain as work. So you do it while you are eating a sandwich.
But the consequence is terrible.
It is, because your brain never actually detaches. You might be physically eating your lunch, but mentally you are still inside the machine waiting for the output.
And Westover had a specific stat on this, didn't he? Regarding how many people actually feel the time savings they were promised?
He did. He cited a survey stating that roughly 40% of non-managerial white-collar workers perceive absolutely no time savings from AI tools.
40%. That is almost half the workforce.
It is massive. Signals a complete disconnect between the utopian promise of the tech and the actual reality of how it is being implemented on the ground.
So why is this happening? Is it just that the technology isn't actually good enough yet, or are we just really bad at using it?
It is neither, actually. The paper argues it is a systemic failure. And to explain this, Westover brings in a concept called socio-technical systems theory.
Okay.
And to really understand it, we have to go back to the British coal mines of the 1950s.
Okay, I love a good history lesson. Connect the dots for me here. How do 1950s coal miners relate to my ChatGPT subscription?
It is a fascinating parallel. So in the 1950s, the British coal industry introduced these massive new conveyor belts and mechanical
The
cutters.
long wall method, right.
Yes, exactly, the long wall method. It was the AI of its day. Technically superior in every single way to men with pickaxes. Management thought productivity would absolutely skyrocket.
But it didn't.
It plummeted. And absenteeism went through the roof. The researchers couldn't figure it out until they stopped looking at the machines and started looking at the social system.
What was the social system before the machines?
Before the new tech miners worked in small, tight-knit pairs. They could talk to each other. They had a communication system called hue and cry, where they could easily warn each other of danger in the dark.
So they had a foundation of trust and constant communication.
Right, but the new machines were incredibly loud. And the new longwall method required the men to be spread out far apart along a massive wall of coal.
Oh, I see.
They couldn't hear each other anymore. They couldn't even see each other well. The social fabric of the work was completely destroyed by the new technology.
So management dropped a brand new technical system into an old social system and broke the human connection that made the work possible.
Exactly. And Westover argues that we are doing the exact same thing right now with generative AI. We are treating it as a simple plug-and-play software update.
Mm.
But it is actually a workflow revolution.
Because when you hide behind AI agents, you lose that human signal.
You lose the hue and cry. Think about that work slop concept again. If I cannot trust the code you send me because I know you just generated it and barely checked it, I slowly stop trusting you.
That completely destroys the team dynamic. The relationship goes from we are building this product together to I need to constantly police your work because you are relying on a bot.
And that right there is a failure of organizational design. It's not a failure of the AI itself. We have the technical system in place, but we haven't updated the social system to match it.
So let's get constructive here. We have diagnosed the disease, workload creep spurred by a lack of social structure. How do we actually fix it?
Well, the source had some really specific solutions.
And I want to dig into them because thankfully they aren't just telling people to take a deep breath or do yoga.
Right. The first major shift organizations need to make is moving from a culture of rules to a culture of governance.
What is the difference in practice?
Rules are restrictive. They just tell you what you cannot do. Governance is structural. It tells you how to operate successfully. The text gives a really great example of an enterprise software company that figured this out.
What do they do?
They noticed their teams were using AI in totally incompatible ways, and it was creating massive chaos. So they created an internal governance committee.
Which honestly sounds incredibly bureaucratic.
I know it sounds terrible, but it actually sped things up tremendously. They defined what they called designated use cases. They essentially created a playbook. They said, here are the specific times when AI adds actual value to our workflow, and here's exactly how we validate the output.
Oh, that is brilliant. So instead of every single employee secretly experimenting and wondering if they're doing it right or if they're going to get in trouble, they had a clear map.
Exactly. It completely reduced the cognitive load of just deciding whether or not to use AI. It gave everyone permission to stop experimenting on every single task and just focus the tools where they actually work.
That ties perfectly into the second solution, which I thought was probably the most radical idea in the paper. Job redesign.
Yes.
This isn't just about training people to use a tool. It is about fundamentally changing their job description.
This is huge. The example they gave from a financial services firm illustrates this perfectly.
Right. Initially, they just gave AI data tools to all of their analysts and said, okay, everyone, do your analysis and then check your own AI work.
Which leads directly to that battery-draining attention fragmentation we talked about earlier.
Exactly. So they realized the friction was too high. What did they change?
They actually split the roles apart. They created a brand new specific position called Analysis Quality Assurance.
Oh, that is interesting. So they specialized the workflow.
Yes, they did. Instead of having every analyst do a mediocre, exhausted job of checking their own AI output, they hired dedicated experts whose entire job was validation. It officially acknowledges that checking AI work is a completely separate, specialized skill set.
That makes so much sense. I mean, you wouldn't ask a line cook to also act as the health inspector for their own kitchen while they're actively cooking meals.
That is a perfect analogy. You desperately need that separation of concerns. And speaking of specific skill sets, we need to talk about training.
Because right now, most corporate AI training is pretty shallow.
It is mostly just prompt engineering.
Right. It is just teaching people how to write the magic spell to get the machine to spit out a result.
But the source heavily argues that we need to pivot to training for judgment. There was a management consulting firm mentioned in the study that started teaching their consultants to ask a critical question before they even opened the AI interface.
What was the question?
They had to ask, does using AI on this specific task add value for the client, or does it just accelerate low-value work?
Wow. So they were essentially learning when not to use it.
It is all about critical evaluation.
Yeah.
Just because you have a tool that can generate a 50-page slide deck in 3 minutes doesn't mean your client actually needs to read a 50-page slide deck.
In fact, sending them that massive deck might actually damage the relationship because you are wasting their time.
Exactly.
But that feels like the hardest habit to break for a worker today. If the easy button is right there on your screen, you really want to push it. It takes a massive amount of discipline to look at a task and say, I'm going to do this the slow manual way, because the slow way is ultimately better.
Which brings us to the crucial leadership piece, expectation management. This shift has to come from the top down.
There was an engineering organization mentioned in the text that did this right.
Yes, their leadership explicitly stated to the entire company that their goal for adopting AI was better quality software. It was not more software.
That takes some serious guts from a leadership team, because usually the board just wants more, faster, cheaper.
It does take guts. But by saying that out loud, they gave their engineers official permission to use the time saved by AI for crucial things like deep testing, for better architecture, for actual deep thinking.
They effectively put a stop to that expectation ratcheting effect.
Exactly. They chose augmentation, which is making the human better at their craft, instead of intensification, which is just making the human work harder and faster.
They made a very conscious, deliberate choice about how the technology would impact their specific culture.
They managed the social system.
There was one last practical solution that I think our listeners could probably implement today. It is about physical boundaries. The source called it scaffolding.
Yes, the scaffolding concept. This is based on the reality that human willpower is simply not enough.
It never is.
Right? You cannot just tell your employees don't work during your lunch break when they're walking around with a supercomputer in their pocket that can literally do their job for them in seconds. You have to build organizational scaffolding to protect them.
Like the manufacturing company policy.
Yes, they implemented a hard policy called meeting integrity. It was a non-negotiable rule. No AI tools, no laptops, no digital tech of any kind during collaborative brainstorming meetings.
Just humans sitting in a room talking to other humans.
Radical, I know.
It sounds so retro.
It is, but it ensured full presence. It forced that hue and cry communication we talked about with the coal miners. And because it was an official policy, it completely removed the social pressure to be constantly prompting and generating output while your colleague is talking.
It protected the workers from their own enthusiasm to be always on. It is like putting physical guardrails on a steep highway. It keeps you moving fast in the right direction without letting you crash over the edge.
And it acknowledges a basic human truth. We need help managing these boundaries. We're not neurologically wired to resist the path of least resistance, and generative AI is the ultimate path of least resistance.
So let's zoom out here and synthesize all of this. We have got the vicious cycle of workload creep. We have the hidden organizational costs of work slop and the executive function brain drain. And we have a solid toolkit of structural fixes like governance and designated roles. What is the big ultimate takeaway here for the listener?
I think the summary is pretty clear. AI is not a magic wand for productivity. It is just a highly sophisticated tool that requires equally sophisticated organizational design to function properly.
Because if you just sprinkle AI on top of a fundamentally broken workflow, you don't get magical efficiency.
No, you just get a much faster broken workflow.
And a much more exhausted workforce.
Precisely. The core takeaway from Westover's research is about agency. We so often feel like technology is something that just happens to us like the weather. But this analysis shows that our organizational choices, our governance, our job design, our culture, those are what determine whether we end up building a digital sweatshop or a creative studio.
We can absolutely choose to use these tools to free up our time, but only if we are incredibly deliberate about how we deploy them.
It is not about what the AI is capable of doing. It is entirely about what we intentionally ask it to do.
That is a great way to put it.
And that actually leads me to a final thought that I would really love the listener to just sit with today. It is a concept that was hinted at in the source material regarding our professional identity.
Okay, let's hear it.
As we dive deeper into this new era of automation, we really have to ask ourselves a tough question. If AI takes over all the actual doing of our jobs, the coding, the writing, the analyzing, and you, as the human, are left only verifying the machine's output, what happens to the satisfaction of the work?
Oh, wow. Yeah, that is the craft question.
It is. There's very real psychological joy in the struggle of creating something from scratch. If we automate away the struggle, do we also inadvertently automate away the satisfaction?
Bad heavy.
You have to ask yourself, are you using AI to free up time for deeper creativity, to focus on the parts of the job that actually fulfill you? Or are you just using it to fill the void with more tasks, more sheer volume, and more slop?
That is a massive question to end on. It really asks, are we building a meaningful career, or are we just processing a never-ending queue of tasks?
Exactly. And honestly, that is the choice we all have to make every single time we open up that prompt window.
Well, on that sobering but empowering note, we are going to let you get back to your day, hopefully to do some deep human thinking, or maybe just to take a real lunch break without looking at your phone. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive.
Thank you so much for having me.
We will see you next time.